Welcome back to the Bible Breakdown channel. Today's video will be the story of Samson and Delilah. Have you ever heard of a man so strong he could tear a lion apart with his bare hands? Or defeat an entire army with nothing but the jawbone of a donkey? This isn't a comic book hero. This is the story of Samson, a judge of ancient Israel, a man chosen by God before he was even born. His life was meant to be one of purpose, to deliver his people from the oppression of the Philistines. And for this divine mission, he was given a gift, supernatural strength. But this gift came with a catch, a sacred vow he had to keep. One of the rules was that he could never cut his hair. His long, flowing locks weren't just a style choice. They were the very source of his incredible power, a physical symbol of his covenant with God. For years, Samson was an unstoppable force, a legend whispered in awe by his friends and in fear by his enemies. He was a one-man army, a hero of epic proportions. But every hero has a weakness, and Samson's wasn't a secret weapon or a magical incantation. His weakness was a matter of the heart. And to Delilah. We don't know much about her origins, but we know she lived in the valley of Sorek, and her beauty was captivating. When the lords of the Philistines, Samson's sworn enemies, learned of his affection for Delilah, they saw their golden opportunity. They couldn't defeat him in battle, so they decided to use deception. They approached Delilah with a staggering offer, a fortune in silver from each of them if she could uncover the secret to Samson's strength. The price was high, but the reward was life-changing. Driven by greed or perhaps other motives lost to history, Delilah agreed. She began her mission, transforming her home from a place of love into a den of betrayal. Her quest was simple: find Samson's vulnerability and deliver him to his enemies. The stage was set for a classic tale of love, betrayal, and the downfall of a mighty hero. Delilah started her interrogation subtly, weaving her questions into their intimate moments. "Tell me," she'd ask with a sweet smile, "what makes you so strong? How could someone bind you and subdue you?" Samson, perhaps sensing a game, played along. He gave her a false answer. "If they tie me up with 7 fresh bowstrings that have never been dried," he said, "I'll become as weak as any other man." Delilah wasted no time. While Samson slept, she tied him with the bowstrings with Philistine soldiers hiding in the room, ready to pounce. Then she cried out, "Samson, the Philistines are upon you." He woke up and snapped the bowstrings as if they were threads touched by fire. His strength was untouched. The first attempt had failed. Delilah was not discouraged. She feigned hurt feelings. "You've made a fool of me. You've lied," she complained. "Please, tell me how you can be tied up." Samson, still toying with her, gave another false secret. "If they tie me securely with new ropes that have never been used, then I'll become weak." Once again Delilah followed his instructions to the letter. She bound him with new ropes while he slept, and once again, the Philistine soldiers lay in wait. "Samson, the Philistines are upon you," she shouted. And just like before, he snapped the ropes off his arms as if they were mere threads. His power remained absolute. The Philistines had been thwarted a second time, and Delilah's frustration grew. Her persistence was relentless. She pressed him again, her tone more demanding, her act of betrayal becoming more audacious. "You're still making a fool of me and lying," she accused. "Tell me how you can be bound." This time, Samson's lie became more elaborate, closer to the truth. He told her, "If you weave the 7 braids of my head into the fabric on the loom and tighten it with the pin, I will become weak." It was a dangerous game. He was now involving his hair, the very symbol of his vow. While he slept, Delilah did exactly as he said, weaving his long hair into her loom. Then she shouted her now familiar alarm. "Samson, the Philistines are upon you." He awoke and simply pulled his head away, yanking the entire loom, pin and all, right out of the ground. The third test was a failure. Samson was still invincible. But Delilah was closer than ever to the truth, and Samson was getting dangerously comfortable with revealing pieces of his sacred secret. By now, Delilah was exasperated. She decided to change her tactics. Instead of just asking for the secret, she attacked his heart. She stopped asking about his strength and started questioning his love. Day after day, she nagged him. "How can you say I love you when you won't confide in me? This is the 3rd time you've made a fool of me and haven't told me the secret of your great strength." Her constant pressure, her emotional manipulation, wore him down, the Bible says. His soul was vexed to death. The strongest man on earth was being broken not by force, but by the persistent, nagging words of the woman he loved. He was exhausted, emotionally drained, and his judgment was clouded. He had resisted armies, but he couldn't resist her emotional siege. Finally, at his absolute breaking point, Samson gave in. He told her everything. He confessed the whole truth, pouring out the story of his life as a Nazirite consecrated to God from birth. "No razor has ever been used on my head," he admitted, "because I have been a Nazirite to God from my mother's womb. If my head were shaved, my strength would leave me, and I would become as weak as any other man." He had given her the key not just to his power, but to his very identity and purpose. He had betrayed his own divine calling, placing his trust in a woman who had already tried to betray him 3 times. Delilah knew, this time, it was the truth. She could feel it. The game was over. Sensing her victory, Delilah sent a message to the Philistine lords. "Come up one more time," she said, "for he has told me all his heart." They came, money in hand, their prize finally within reach. Delilah then lulled Samson to sleep, his head resting on her lap. It's a powerful image, the mighty warrior, completely vulnerable, in the arms of his betrayer. She called for a man to come and shave off the 7 braids of his hair. As the last lock fell to the floor, his strength literally drained away from him. Delilah then began to torment him, and his power was gone. He shouted one last time, "Samson, the Philistines are upon you." He awoke and thought, "I will go out as before and shake myself free," but he did not know that the Lord had left him. His connection to God, the source of his strength, was severe. The Philistines seized him. The man who had once been their greatest fear was now helpless. In a cruel act of revenge, they gouged out his eyes, robbing the world's strongest man of his sight. They bound him with bronze shackles and took him to Gaza. There, the once feared judge of Israel was forced to grind grain in a prison, a task usually reserved for donkeys or the lowest of servants. He became a public spectacle, a source of entertainment for his enemies. The Philistines celebrated their victory, praising their god Dagon for delivering their enemy into their hands. They saw Samson's downfall as proof that their God was more powerful than the God of Israel. Samson, blind and broken, had hit rock bottom. He had lost his strength, his freedom, his sight, and his divine purpose, all because he traded a sacred secret for a deceptive love. But the story doesn't end there. In the darkness of that prison, something began to happen. Forgotten and humiliated, Samson's hair began to grow back. With the slow return of his hair came the slow return of his faith. He began to pray. The Philistines, in their arrogance, decided to have one last great celebration. They gathered in their temple, thousands of them, rulers and common people alike, to offer a great sacrifice to Dagon and to celebrate. They were ecstatic, and to add to the festivities, they called for Samson to be brought out to entertain them. They put the blind giant on display, mocking him, reveling in his weakness. They stood in between the 2 central pillars that supported the entire temple. In that moment, standing between the pillars, Samson prayed his final prayer. It was not a prayer for escape, but for one last act of divine justice. He said, "Sovereign Lord, remember me. Please, God, strengthen me just one more time, and let me with one blow get revenge on the Philistines for my 2 eyes." He placed his hands on the 2 central pillars, one on his right and one on his left. He pushed with all his might, a final surge of God-given strength coursing through him. He cried out, "Let me die with the Philistines." The pillars gave way, and the massive temple came crashing down. The roof collapsed, burying everyone inside, the rulers, the people, and Samson himself. The Bible says that he killed more people in his death than he had during his entire life. His final act was one of ultimate sacrifice and redemption, a final fulfillment of his destiny to strike a devastating blow against the enemies of his people. It's a tragic but powerful ending to one of the most dramatic stories ever told. Thanks for watching. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into epic tales from history and mythology. See you in the next video.